had made inquiry for Shamun's house, and stood before the gate, and called and asked whether Shamun, which was surnamed Kepha, were lodged there. While Kepha thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, Behold, 3 men seek thee. Think about that. Just after he had this vision of this sheep with all this unclean meat coming down, and it happened 3 times, and he got this message 3 times, rise, kill, and eat, what I have cleansed, do not call common. 3 men, let's be more specific, 3 Gentiles come to him. Okay? And we want to put these things together. Verse 20. Arise therefore, and get thee down, and go with them, doubting nothing. In other words, the Spirit is now understanding. The Bible teaches us that the Most High knows our thoughts afar off. So the Creator knows there was some trouble there because of the doubting. In other words, I'm encouraging you, go with these men, doubting nothing. In other words, I'm moving you, I'm leading you to do this thing. Okay? For I have sent them. Think about that. The Creator now says to Kepha, I sent these 3 men right after. Okay? I sent this message, this vision 3 times. Okay? Let's put this thing together. Verse 21. Then Kepha went down to the men which were sent unto him from Cornelius, and said, Behold, I am he whom you seek. What is the cause wherefore ye are come? And they said, Cornelius the centurion, a just man, and one that feareth Allah, and of good report among all the nations of the Yahudi, was warned from Allah by an holy angel to send for thee into his house, and to hear words of thee. Then called he them in, and lodged them, and on the morrow Kepha went away with them, and certain brethren from Joppa accompanied him. And the morrow after they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them, and had called together his kinsmen and near friends. And as Kepha was coming in, Cornelius met him, and fell down at his feet, and worshipped him. But Kepha took him up, saying, Stand up, I myself also am a man. And as he talked with him, he went in, and found many that were come together. And he said unto them, Ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Yahudi to keep company, or come unto one of another nation. In other words, there's a teaching that he was quite familiar with, which now is starting to clarify the vision that he had. How do we know that? Because of his next statement. But Allah hath showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Right there, brothers and sisters. Acts chapter 10, verse 28. It gives the reasoning behind the vision. It had nothing to do with abrogating the dietary law. It was a method that the Creator used to teach about accepting the Gentiles into the fold. That's what it was teaching. That's one of the things that it was teaching. Okay? In other words, the meaning of the vision is this. Salvation has now come to the Gentiles. Simple and plain. Alright? But the other thing that it teaches, as another side note, in Romans chapter 7 and verse 14, Brother Shaul, he says, For we know. And when he says for we, the reference is to Israel, okay? Israelites, or Yahudi, the Jews, whatever term you prefer. Okay? For we know that the law, talking about the word that was given to Moshe and to the prophets. That the law is spiritual. In other words, when we read about the dietary laws, literally speaking, as far as keeping the letter of the law goes, it simply means that we should not eat or come into contact with any of the foods we already been through. That's the literal meaning of it. But there's a spiritual connotation too. And what we also learn from this passage here in Acts is that spiritual connotation. These animals also point to the characteristics of people, which is why the Most High used them in the vision. So when he says not to eat the swine, okay, is it enough to just refrain from not eating that particular meat? But the characteristic that you exhibit is just like that old swine? Think about it. Now, if you're a city folk, which I am a city folk, and I'm not speaking from personal experience, but what I'm about to say is based on country folk experience and what I have been taught by country folk. A pig will come to you if you call it, if it wants something. In other words, if it's hungry. And you call it by whatever name you give that pig. It comes and runs. But once that pig has got what it wants and goes back out to the yard, you call that pig. That pig wants absolutely nothing to do with you. That's an animal. We learn by observing that animal, the characteristics of that animal. But isn't that the same characteristics of some people? These are the people who call on the Creator when they want something from Him. But when they get what it is they want, they turn their back and go right back to doing whatever it is that they choose to do. He does not want us to have that characteristic. So it's more that is entailed in just refraining from eating some swine. If your mentality is to use God or to pet God, then you just like that swine. And the fact that you don't eat that swine is actually null and void. That's what we also learn from this passage. But let's keep on track, because what we want to do, we want to see other evidences. Now, verse 29. It says, "Therefore came I unto you without gainsaying, as soon as I was sent for. I asked therefore, for what intent ye have sent for me? And Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour, and at the ninth hour I prayed in my house. And behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing, and said, Cornelius, thy prayer is heard, and thine alms are had in remembrance in the sight of Allah. Send therefore to Joppa, and call hither Shimon, whose surname is Kepha. He is lodged in the house of one Shimon, a tanner, by the seaside, who, when he cometh, shall speak unto thee. Immediately therefore I sent to thee, and thou hast well done that thou art come. Now therefore are we all here present before Allah, to hear all things that are commanded thee of Allah. Then Kepha opened his mouth and said, Of a truth I perceive that Yah is no respecter of persons. But in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. That was the purpose of the vision. When I have cleansed, call not thou common. In other words, there are going to be people from the Gentile nations, the nation that I prohibited you to interact with at one point. Now the doors of salvation are being opened and they're being welcomed into the fold. That's what he's talking about. Had absolutely nothing with doing away with the dietary laws. We are still to this very day obligated to keep those commandments and refrain from eating anything that was